All right, welcome to the third book discussion. This is The Most Dangerous Game.
Yes.
Which is a short story.
Yeah.
So type in about size 12 font. It takes up about 15 pages.
I like how specific you are with the font size.
Well, because normally it would be in an actual book. Like they do collections of short stories. So it would be 30 of those pages, but of like typed pages that normal people think of is 15 pages.
Okay.
So Mitch doesn't know anything yet about my reading of this book or anything. So
Well, I mean, you can broaden that. I really don't know anything.
yeah, fair enough. So Mitchell doesn't know anything. And this story I read 4 times. So I read it to enjoy it, read it again to enjoy it, read it a third time to take notes, and then read it a 4th time to compare my notes and just to enjoy.
So that's a 60-page short story.
Well, for me it was.
Okay.
So it's a 15-page story, and I have 5 pages of notes.
Oh.
It was a lot more notes than I was expecting to make.
I really appreciate that.
Well, I had to this time because there was way too many notes.
Yeah.
Some of them are not as fully formed as the note. And when I did longer books, I had to sort of come up with big, broad topics that I then discuss. With a 15-page short story, you can kind of put it all in there.
Oh, typing is the only reason why my shows are actually going to come to fruition. Because everything I did before was done written.
You're not a writer.
I didn't want to rewrite the whole draft. So now I'm actually typing things out and I'm able to go through it and then remove things without having to rewrite the entire story.
It's almost like they invented computers to be repeatable like
that. To be, useful and shit.
Okay, so first thing I want to ask you. So you know the story is called The Most Dangerous Game. Do you know anything else about it?
A general idea. It's about a guy who's hunted everything and realizes that the greatest challenge is going to be humanity.
Okay. So
it's parodied 100 times, so you know the general
that's
concept.
True, actually, because
it's an archer.
When I first heard it, I thought, oh, the most dangerous game, like football, luge, like what's the most dangerous game here? And I guess when you think of a hunter and you go, oh, okay, they hunt game, it makes way more sense all of a sudden.
I think it's a play on words.
It is.
Because it's also a dangerous game
to be playing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, at one point in it, the one of the main characters likens the game that they play to being like outdoor chess. So in some ways, it is kind of like a game. It's like a strategy game.
You just got to be ahead of them.
Yeah. So I'll just take you through the plot, which will actually probably take us a long time.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if there's anything else that I've missed.
Sure.
So the main character, his name is Rainsford, which I think is super cool.
Okay.
Because it's a very obscure... All the names are obscure in this, actually. So you got Rainsford...
Like Dequan?
There's no Dequan.
There's no Dequan?
No Dequan.
I always say Dequan. Is it Dequan? Dequan is so much
You're
funnier.
asking the wrong dude.
Oh, okay. You don't know any Dequans?
I do not know a Dequan.
Okay.
I know a Jackwan.
Dickwan?
What?
A Dick Wand? What?
I've met a Dickwand before.
Really?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
It takes one to know one.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Takes Dickwan to know...
To know Dickwand?
Dickwan.
So Rainsford has this companion named Whitney, which is a guy.
Right.
It's Whitney, I guess, is his hunting companion. So Rainsford and this other guy are these really superfluous big game hunters. They're just...
Superfluous, as in unnecessary?
Ineffective? Is that what superfluous means?
Yeah, superfluous nipple is one that doesn't actually work. Pretty sure.
Interesting.
And that's based on The Simpsons, so let's not take that one as
okay. So
fact.
Where I once said superfluous, let's say prolific.
Oh,
so they're
as in really.
Prolific means like something that spreads out a lot. So they're hunters that have been all over the place. They've hunted all kinds of things. They're professional hunters, and so they're on this boat. And they're heading through, I guess, the Caribbean. So the Caribbean is like these warm waters in this really calm, dark area. And they're traveling along, and someone says, oh, by the way, there's an island, like, off to our left. I think Whitney says to Rainsford, there's an island off to our left.
Right.
And Rainsford looks out, and he can't see shit. And he says, don't see it. So Whitney says, yeah, you... Rainsford, who could see a brown moose in the brown forest at 400 yards away, still can't see this island 4 kilometers off. And he says, I can barely see 4 feet. Like, you couldn't see anything on this night.
Oh, it's foggy?
It's not foggy. It's because it's so humid and so dark. There's just no light whatsoever. And Rainsford at one point is actually sitting smoking a pipe and he likens it to being so dark outside that he wouldn't have to close his eyes to fall asleep. Like it's just pitch black out there.
Yeah, I've been in that.
So they're looking off to the side of the boat. They can't see anything. And then Whitney starts talking about how this island is called Ship Trap Island, and how all the sailors get really nervous around it.
That's a baity name.
Exactly. And he says like even the Swede captain, who's this like hardened sailing veteran, gets like really spooked around this island. And Rainsford goes, "That's bullshit. Like, this is all superstition. It's gotta be." And Whitney says, "Well, I got this like sudden dread when we passed the island." And Rainsford's still in the same mood. He's like, You're imagining all of this. It's a mirage. Like, all of this is in your head."
Right.
And Whitney says, "You know what? Maybe we'll have better luck when we make it to the Amazon." And they talk about how they're going to hunt tigers, I think. And they need to get these like tiger hunting guns. I guess they're big game hunters, so they need appropriate weapons.
Right.
So they're talking about when they get to their next city, it's going to be, everything will go back to normal. It won't be as ominous as it is out on the water. And then Whitney says, "Okay, I'm going to go to bed." And Rainsford says, "Nah, I'm going to chill and smoke my pipe." That's what he does. So he's just sitting on the deck smoking his pipe, and then he hears shots off in the distance, like unmistakably gunshots,
right,
off in the distance, off to the same side that the island was. And he's thinking, okay, this is weird. This is really weird.
Yeah, all this is very weird.
Well, Ship Trap Island, there's got to be some bait shit going on there.
Yeah.
So this is where
Ship Trap. Someone really needed to work a little harder on that one. This
is the strange thing about the story. All of a sudden, so Rainsford, in order to get a better idea of what's going on, he tries to hop up onto the railing of the boat. Yeah, so it even says like 4 elevation. So I don't know.
Like you needed that clarification.
Yeah, like well otherwise why the fuck would you be getting up on anyways? So he hops up onto the railing, and in the process, I guess, knocks the pipe out of his mouth, and when he lunges to grab it, he falls off the boat.
Okay.
So yeah,
this Rainsford guy seems like a bit of a
tool.
he
sounds like an idiot.
Yeah.
That's why this part of the book I think is a little weird, because he just sort of jumps in the water, right? Like he jumps up on the railing and then just splash right into the water.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, shit happens, I guess. But he wasn't being very careful, considering no one else is on the deck to save him if he falls in.
Do they mention the time period?
Not really, but based off everything I've seen from the book, this is probably in like the 80s.
Okay.
So it's not the smartphone era. I guess this was written sometime in that era too. So it's probably
really?
pre-2000.
I always imagine the Dangerous Game happened in like the 50s. For some reason.
To be totally honest, it could, because there's nothing in it that really speaks of high technology. Most of it's just like they have lights, they're on a boat, stuff that they would totally have in the 50s. Yeah. So without any sort of visual evidence, I guess it could be any time, really, any time that people are on ships.
I guess maybe it's intentionally ambiguous, because a ship could be anything.
Well, also, it proves that this could happen at any time. Like, this whole story could occur in any generation, as long as there's
Every generation has pipes. Every generation has dumbass ship sailors.
Apparently, yeah. Who do not understand how to get...
Shipwreck Island.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm taking from this.
So he follows the pipe off the boat into the water. It's funny, he starts screaming, but then he hits the water, so it cuts off his scream. And by the time he comes up, like, the boat's already... way past him.
Right.
So he tries to chase it down, and the next thing you know, the boat totally disappears. Like, you can't even see the lights of the boat anymore, and it's just gone. And so he's actually in the middle of the sea. This isn't like a river. They're not in the Amazon, like in this narrow channel. Like, they're at open water.
Ooh.
So he just says, okay, well, I know the only place I can go is that island, right? I heard pistol shots. So something's got to be there.
That's terrifying. Yeah,
so he turns and he starts swimming in that direction, because it's the only place he can go. And he's swimming for minutes, so I don't know how long or how far that is.
Not that far.
In minutes? Yeah, it's true.
Like, an average person who's probably not that... maybe he's a good swimmer. Maybe that's why he was such an idiot. He's like, whatever, I'm a good swimmer. It's fine.
It's true. Maybe he thought he could catch the boat.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe he's an expert.
So he's swimming towards this island, and he hears this, like, shrill scream sound. And he doesn't know what it is, but then he hears another shot. And that's when he confirms, like, that was a pistol, for sure. Like, he knows it's another gunshot. It was a pistol shot. And at this point, he probably thought he only had, like, 100 strokes left, which is not very far. 100 strokes through water gets you, like, 25 meters.
Yeah.
So he makes it to the island, just somehow barely makes it to the island. And he even said that if it was any more intense, if the water was actually moving that night, he probably would have just been crashed off the rocks and died. But because it was so calm, he was able to actually get up on these jagged rocks at the edge of this island.
Okay.
And just passed out in the jungle. The second he got there, it even says like he fell into the deepest sleep of his life. Because he just swam for his life and has no idea where he is, and it's dark outside. Yeah, so he just passes out, and he doesn't wake up until the afternoon.
Oh shit!
So this is deep. Like, I don't even know how you sleep on like shrubs and stuff like all night long. I feel like you'd be woken up as soon as the sun was out.
I think it's probably the ordeal he went through.
That's true. You don't really understand how fatigued a person can be just by what they're going through as far as like their mental state. So he wakes up and he just starts to do some basic investigation to figure out where he is. And he finds the area where he's pretty sure the animal got shot, that scream he heard. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole bunch of shrubbery that's crushed down, and there's like a red stain. And then nearby he finds a .22 caliber pistol shell.
Oh, shell, okay.
So this animal, which is obviously a pretty big animal, he could tell from all of its thrashing around, was killed with a .22 pistol, which is a small weapon for a hunter to be using against like any sort of large game.
Yeah.
And that's where he finds the thing he was really looking for, which is hunting boot tracks. Because he's thinking, okay, well, men means food, so I'm going to go towards them.
Salvation.
And just hope for the best.
Irony.
It is actually really ironic. Follow the murderer, follow the...
Well, he doesn't realize that he's guys. I imagine this is probably going to go in the direction of they were hunting people.
Yeah, maybe. you could say that. Yeah. And then, so
Perhaps a game of jungle chess.
Perhaps jungle chess. We shall do jungle chess. So he follows these footsteps and gets back to what he believes is a town at first. It's so many lights that he sees over the edge of this ridge that he thinks he's arriving at like a city. But it's not. It's one huge mansion with like towers as if it's a castle. It's this massive mansion built on what, you know what a bluff is?
Oh, yeah. It's a empty space surrounded by foliage, I think.
Something like that. And I'm sure it's a generic description.
A duck bluff, I believe, is a spot you can sit where ducks can't see you.
That's a duck blind.
But
yeah, a bluff.
As I said it didn't sound right. I'm like, okay, no, that's right. So that's like a blind.
Yeah. Well, a bluff, I don't know what it means, but what it's sitting on essentially a peninsula of cliffs.
Okay.
So on every side of the house, except for the side you approach from, it's just sheer cliffs all the way down to the water. Mm. And this is actually one of the interesting things. They always describe the water in all of these stories I'm reading as being alive. Like they say that the water licked its greedy lips. Oh. Which is creepy. I know, very creepy. But when you start to hear more about Ship Trap Island, it kind of makes sense why they choose to personify the water like that.
Yeah.
And more specifically, the rocks. The rocks are really important to like the personification of this island.
Okay.
So he sees this massive mansion and he thinks it's a mirage for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And doesn't have a choice. So he thinks, okay, well, let's go. Let's see what's in this mansion.
Yeah.
Gets there and there's, I think it's like a gargoyle knocker. Like a really epic gargoyle knocker on this huge wooden door. And he lifts it and it's never been lifted before. It's never been moved.
Oh.
So it creaks and it's this old ass knocker.
So nobody goes there and
nobody walks up to the house and knocks and lets themselves in. That's just not how it works. So he knocks the door twice and then the door just flies open and there's this giant man. And they describe him as a giant many, many times. He's this huge Russian guy and he's got this massive, massive beard. Basically all you can see are his eyes. And he's pointing a revolver at Rainsford, and he's just standing there silently. So Rainsford he's like, oh yeah, that's his last name. His real name, his name is Sanger Rainsford.
Sanger.
Sanger Rainsford. Sanger Rainsford.
I'm trying to find like a hidden word in there that like implies who he is or something. Sanger.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I don't know why why the artist chose to go with all these strange names.
Because it's easy to be distracted by that.
A little bit, but he only mentions his first name once. That's the only time.
Okay.
Every other time it's Rainsford. So he says, like, I'm Sanger Rainsford. I'm from New York. I fell off my boat. I need food. And the guy isn't moving at all. This giant is just standing there. And I think he keeps saying stuff, and then the giant pulls the hammer back on the gun. And he keeps trying to explain who he is, and then all of a sudden the giant moves out of the way and takes a military salute. And when that happens, he sees this guy coming down the staircase, like one of these massive ballroom staircases. And it's a much thinner, regular-sized human. He's got, like, long white hair, but he has, like, stark black eyebrows and a black mustache. So he's this very strange-looking character, and he introduces himself as General Zaroff. So he's...
General Zaroff.
I know, the names, right? It's all these really strange names in this.
I'm still trying to find it meanings in their names. Like, the only thing I can think of is, like, if you had a race with a lot of generals, and you're like, and the generals are off.
Oh my god, the generals are off. Well, there's some meaning right there. So the general says, it's a pleasure to take the renowned hunter Rainsford into my home.
Oh shit, he knows who he is.
He knows who he is. Yeah, so he already recognizes him. And he says, don't mind Ivan, who's the huge, massive dude.
Right, of course. Why would you mind him?
He says he is unfortunately both deaf and dumb, and that's why he didn't understand anything Rainsford was saying, and why he didn't respond to him.
And dumb in the original literal sense.
In the literal sense of not being able to speak.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And then he says he also has the displeasure of being from a race of savages. He says he is
That's a nice way to refer to them.
Well, it's funny because he says he's from a race of savages. He's a Cossack, which is I think it's like an offshoot of Russian. It's in that area, like the Cossack people.
I know that name, Andrew Cossack.
No, I don't think it's the last name. No, because it's a culture of people.
No, there's definitely a Cossack.
I'm sure there is.
Sorry, Andrew.
Called you out.
If that's you, I guess. I don't know.
So he says, yeah, he's a Cossack. And then he smiles and he says, so am I. So he's already implying that he's a savage from the moment he meets Rainsford.
That's a very interesting way of saying it.
Way of putting it, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So he says...
Already this character is very...
He's very mercurial.
Yeah. What's mercurial?
Mercurial just means that you don't keep one form, because mercury is a very mobile type substance. It's like very fluid, but it's not like water.
I every time you say that, I think Mercutio.
Oh, really? I always think of there's a scene from Prison Break where Wentworth Miller is talking to John Abruzzi. I know I just totally mixed actor and character names, but whatever. And he says, you're a very mercurial man.
Oh.
And then John Abruzzi says something along the lines of, what does that mean?
But he says it in a very, I forget that guy's actor's name. What does that mean?
Yeah, very, very Russian way. Maybe he's a Cossack.
Oh, shit.
Could be. So he says, you know what, let's not talk about this now. I was about to eat dinner anyways. Why don't you join me? Go get changed and then like come meet me in the dining room and we'll do dinner together. So Ivan leads him up to this bedroom, this ridiculously nice bedroom where if you ever see a bed that has curtains, like bedposts and curtains hanging from it, you know you're in a rich fucking place.
Yes.
So they lead him to one of these bedrooms and he says, I think my clothes will fit you. So just try my clothes. And when he's trying the clothes on, he can see like who tailored them because it's inscribed into the clothing. And it's a tailor that only makes clothes for people who are dukes. Dukes are higher in like the hierarchy.
Oh.
So this is also in an era where sort of royalty, I guess. I don't know if duke is a royal name or if it's like a nobleman type position.
Duke is a title.
Okay.
Usually, I think it sounds like a title.
Either way, it's in a time when class is important, and it's also in an era where United States exists because Rainsford is from the United States.
New York, and he's also got a pistol that has a hammer that can be pulled back.
So it's at least after the 40s.
Sometime. Well, they had handguns in the First World War.
That's true.
So it's probably. Well, they would have had revolvers in like the late 1800s, so this could be like...
Well, actually, Rainsford mentions his time in France during a war. So odds are that's the First World War that he's talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know when New York was established.
A long time ago. New York was like one of the first cities established in the States.
Yeah.
So that gives us a 200-year period-ish that this story must have taken place in.
I'm guessing it's probably, if he's got Duke clothes, it's probably 80s and back.
Probably, yeah. In an era where people really respected class above everything else.
Yeah.
Where it was this super important distinction between people. So he gets dressed and he goes down to the dining hall. And the dining hall is a table for 40 people. Only the general is sitting there. And there's like one other plate left for Rainsford.
I like this guy.
Yeah, so he walks in. It's got oak panels on the walls. And he sees numerous heads of... I think I have them listed down here somewhere. Oh, it says 5 types of multiple animals. Well, that doesn't help me. He has tigers, Cape buffalo. He has snow leopards. He has all these different heads, and he has multiples of these heads. And Rainsford even remarks that these are like the biggest, most impressive heads he's ever seen.
Wow, okay. So this guy's really into it.
Yeah, and Rainsford's a hunter. He's like a professional hunter. This is what he does for his life. So you can imagine...
Professional is the word we should use for this one, because he's kind of a tool.
Yeah, well, he's a professional hunter, not a professional boatsman. You know, he's not a sailor.
Professional boatsman.
So the general starts talking about how, you know, we try to keep the amenities on this island. And that's why it's so lavish. Everything is so lavish, like, in this guy's house. And throughout the story, the general's always like that. He's always dressed in really nice clothes. Like, he's got tweed when he goes out hunting. And
nice.
He's got... Yeah, I love tweed. I love tweed.
What's tweed?
It's this weird material. It's, you've ever seen, like, an old man coat that usually have patches on them?
Yes.
That's tweed. That material that's, like, almost as rough as wool, but it's almost like cotton, too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that material.
Is it super warm? Is that why they use it?
I don't know, actually. I know it's really rugged, but also looks nice. So it's kind of a mix. Like, it's not quite a fancy dress jacket, but it's also not a rugged work jacket.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the idea. Yeah, tweed. I like the word tweed.
Yeah.
Tweed. And the general says that he's read every hunting book written in English, French, and Russian.
Every hunting book?
Every hunting book.
So that limits us now. That brings us back. Because there would have been like a finite amount of hunting books out there. Yeah.
Well, Rainsford even wrote one. Rainsford wrote a book on hunting snow leopards in Tibet, and that's what he first starts talking to him about. And this is the point where Rainsford starts to get a little nervous because every time he looks at the general is like studying him, sizing him up, and yeah, it's just he's observing him in this way that's not a normal. Looking at somebody. He's really intent on all of his features and he's sizing him up. Fuck. Yeah, so it starts to get weird, but obviously Rainsford he's getting food, so he doesn't give a shit at this point. He's just kind of surviving and, you know, meeting this strange general dude. So he talks about how he's read all these books and then Rainsford notices the massive Cape buffalo, which is, do you know what a Cape buffalo is?
Sounds big.
So a Cape buffalo is an African animal, and it's almost twice the size of a bull, of a modern day bull.
I think I know. I think does it have a really wide...
Super wide horns that stretch very much like a tauren, straight out from the sides of its head, and then they curl up slightly.
Okay.
And they're probably almost 2,000 pounds, these animals.
Right.
And so he talks about how when he caught it fractured his skull when it threw him against a tree.
Fuck.
Yeah, and it said it laid him up for 6 months.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, well, and that's the most dangerous game, right?
Right.
Not exactly, but that's the whole point, is that he's always looking for something that's going to test him further and more and be, I guess, more aggressive, more cunning, more... the thing he really wants is he wants an animal that can reason. So, yeah, this is where he starts talking to Rainsford, and he says... Yeah, Cape buffalo is pretty dangerous, but it's not the most dangerous game. He says, here, on my island, I hunt the most dangerous game.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah, and Rainsford says, oh, there's game on this island? And he says, well, yes, but I have to stalk it. It's not here naturally. He says, I wanted something that would challenge me more, so I knew I needed to invent a new animal. And Rainsford says, what do you mean invent a new animal? Now, the funny thing is they dance around this idea of... what he's hunting, so much so that the point at which Rainsford says, there's game, and then the point at which the general tells him what the game is 2 pages. 2 out of 15 pages it takes. Yeah, because the general doesn't want to like just outright admit it to him. He wants to build him up to the idea.
Well, this guy likes to play with his food, I guess.
Well, the thing that's weird for me is that the general always wants more challenge, but at no point does he mention, why not bow hunt? If you bow hunt, all of a sudden an animal that's easy as hell with a high-powered rifle,
or hunt something extremely agile.
That's the thing. He's hunted tigers. He's hunted panthers. He's hunted everything.
Like
birds.
Apes?
That's a good question, actually.
Because they're coordinated. Imagine trying to hunt a
baboon colony.
A colony of baboons with the intention of killing every single one of them, one by one, like Predator.
And I feel like they could totally take you on, baboons.
I feel like this guy's a little off.
Yeah, well, he even says at one point, well, okay, I'll get
I guess
there.
He's a savage, right?
He's a savage. Those Cossacks.
It's just like, I would definitely, if I had already hunted everything that was stronger, I would move on to faster. And I'd probably go closer and closer to humanity before I finally said, okay, I guess I'll hunt people. But even then, this dude is a hunter, which I guess makes sense why you'd want to challenge yourself. But there's definitely people in the world that would be really hard to hunt.
Wait, people?
Yeah.
Lots of people.
But what I mean is, some dude who just happens upon your island who's also a hunter is not a hugely challenging person. Maybe he's only just started people, but
doesn't. Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah. It sounds like he's been doing this for a while.
Well established.
Like soldiers, elite soldiers, or
Navy SEALs, that type of level of practitioner, I guess. Military practitioner.
Someone who lives for the fight would be way harder to fight because not only would you be hunting them, they would be hunting you back. Whereas if some dude who just fell off a boat is not gonna, his instinct is not gonna be to trap you. But if you're after some elite soldier from World War I, that guy's first instinct is to get away from you, and the second is to lay a trap. He's gonna be harder. So maybe this guy's a little fucked up, a lot more than it sounds like.
Well, he is, because he starts telling about how he's been hunting his whole life. He killed his first bear when he was 10. He's been hunting his entire life. The only time he didn't hunt was when he had to go to military service, because that's expected of noblemen's sons, is that they become military men. And that was the only point in his life when he didn't actively hunt. But even then, he would hunt wherever he was. So he's talking about how hunting's his whole life. And so once he started to get bored of hunting, he can't just give up his life of hunting because he's getting bored with it.
Right.
So he even talks about how the weak are put here for the strong to do as they please. He says, I am strong and they're weak, so why should I not enjoy myself?
I don't know if that's quite the right reason.
Yeah, so I'll even read it. So he's going along and he's saying, I need an animal that can reason. And then Rainsford says, but no animal can reason. And the general says,
there is but one.
My dear fellow, there is one that can. And Rainsford says, you're joking. What you're talking about is murdering people. And he says, don't be so cavalier about it. Oh. I figured a young man of your upbringing would be a lot less romantic about the meaning of human life.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and he's actually always belittling Rainsford for being too sensitive about murdering people.
Wow.
And Rainsford uses the best line of all time. He goes, great guns, General Zaroff. What you speak of is murder. I love that line. Great guns. How dare you?
What you speak of is murder. Absolute murder. Don't be so cavalier. I've heard that I think that's been parodied. Because I've heard that before.
I think I might have paraphrased that. I don't know if he actually says that.
Oh.
So maybe I'm just on the button right now.
Could be.
I'm making references as we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, that's fine.
I'm just pulling them out of my ass.
Yeah.
This is actually where Ship Trap Island starts to get real creepy.
I still don't like that name.
Well, this is why. He says, sometimes the ships are brought to me, and other times I have to sort of tip the scales. And then he brings Rainsford over to the window, and he flicks a switch, and these lights in the water light up, indicating that there's a channel. But there isn't. It just goes right into the rocks.
Oh.
So, yeah, he just turns on this thing, and people are like, oh, there's a channel, and they just run their ship aground. And then all those sailors have nowhere to go.
Oh, fuck.
So it literally is Ship Trap Island. It is an island which traps ships.
It's still a bad name.
Shit name.
There's so many names you could have come up with.
Yeah.
You could have called it, I mean, Shipwreck Island is already better.
They probably could have called it Death Swamp Island, because there is actually
Yeah.
a death swamp.
Anything but Ship Trap. That's like, don't come here, island. Like, and why does
Avoid at all cost island.
Exactly. Why does he know about the island and its name, but his friend doesn't know that it's there? I'm not sure what's going on there.
That's actually a really good point.
Thank you. I noticed that you put an X on that instead of a check mark. Does that mean you disagree?
No, I'm just annotating like where I am, because I wrote 5 pages of notes, which is it's like half the story worth of notes.
That's a third of the story.
Yeah,
like
it's pretty.
Is that 12-point font? Got there?
No, it's probably less than a third of the story, but it's significantly more than I've ever done before. Usually, I do like 2 pages of handwritten notes. This is actually where the general says, "Okay, well, Rainsford, we're gonna hunt." And he says, "We're going to hunt tomorrow when you're feeling better."
Oh, so he offers Rainsford to be part of the hunt and not be hunted?
Yeah, well, the general keeps saying this one thing. He says maybe 4 or 5 times in this book, he never jokes about hunting. So if you hear him say something about hunting, he fucking means it.
Whoa.
And he doesn't go back on it when he says something about hunting.
I'm a big fan of consistent characters.
Oh, he's super consistent. He's consistent right into the ground. You know?
Like the ships.
Exactly. So he says, yeah, we're going to go. We'll see my training school tomorrow. I got like 12 dudes down there getting ready for the hunt, training in the basement. Jeez. And he says, it's so funny because there's this one scene where he says, they bring me all kinds. And he starts, and it sounds like he's being super racist. He's like, they bring me the lowest of the low, blacks, Chinese, whites. And I'm like, okay, well, at least he's an equal opportunity murderer. Mongols.
Is it actually being from Mongolia, or is that a?
You might say mongrels.
Mongrels,
yeah. Now that I'm thinking of it. And he even likens his. He has hounds. He has dogs, and he likens those dogs to being better than the men. Oh. He's like, one of my hounds is worth 20 men.
Jeez.
Yeah, or like 20 of these sailor men. So he really doesn't have a whole lot of... I think that's why he doesn't hunt people who actually deserve to be hunted. Because he has this weird thing where he's trying to put off the guilt by pretending that these lives have no worth. So if he...
Dehumanizing.
Yeah, if he took someone who was this amazing military expert who was also some sort of high-level field operative, he wouldn't be able to say, this guy ain't shit. He wouldn't be able to say this is a degenerate man, because obviously he's not. So he actually says to Rainsford, this is how it works. I offer them to hunt, and if they refuse, then I give them over to Ivan. And Ivan has a totally different idea of sport than I do. So apparently Ivan used to be what's known as a knotter for the Russian Tsar. And a knotter...
A knotter?
Yeah, like a knot ER, like KNOUTER.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And what that means is it was someone in Russia who would actually whip criminals to death.
Holy shit.
Yeah, how Russian and intense is that?
Yeah.
Whip them to death. So he says, invariably everybody participates because the other option is so much shittier.
Yeah.
He says the deal is you get food, you get hunting gear and a hunting knife. And then I follow you with a small caliber pistol of the shortest possible range.
That's
how
it really
works.
is a game.
It is a game.
He's explaining it to you. He's telling you the rules. He's giving you the other option of not playing.
Yeah.
So he kind of puts you in a position where your best option is to go with this.
Play the game. Exactly.
Fuck.
Well,
and clearly no one's ever won.
Well, he even asks, Rainsford says, and if they win? And he says, well, no one's won.
Because I'm still here.
But one guy got close, and I had to pull the hounds out on him. And that's when he shows Rainsford that he has something like a dozen hounds. And he says every night at 7 o'clock they get let loose. So if anyone tries to get in or out of the house in that time, they get ravaged. Which means Rainsford showed up just in time.
Oh.
Because whenever he was showing up was probably dinner. And was probably around 7.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And then he says, okay, like, come with me, and we will have a look at my new collection of heads.
Oh, no.
And Rainsford just says...
It's gotta be people heads.
Rainsford says, I don't feel good. I have to go to bed. Like, I need to get the fuck out of here. He's not down at all, obviously.
Yeah.
So the general says, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, your swim probably tired you out, go to bed.
I wouldn't want this to be too easy.
And then that's when he says... he says, okay, rest up, and in the morning you'll be ready to hunt. And he says, it's too bad you couldn't come with me tonight. It's going to be a good hunt. It's going to be a strong black.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that's actually what he means?
That's what he means.
Okay.
That's what he's talking about. Strapping strong black.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
well.
So I think he actually leaves to hunt then. The general goes to hunt that evening.
Okay.
So Rainsford is taken back to his room and basically just has to stay there the night, and obviously doesn't get any sleep.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even know what to do at this point because he hasn't really been given all the information as to like what he should be preparing for.
Yeah.
So he doesn't sleep. He's like at the window looking out to see all the dogs. And yeah, weird.
This would be a great movie.
It would be a good movie. And then he actually hears pistol shots in the night. So he knows something's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. And then that's actually, I guess he sleeps. He sleeps a little bit because after a while you would just be so tired.
Yeah.
He woke up at noon after having like swam through the ocean. So he wakes up and the general's coming back at around lunch. And this is where he's dressed in tweeds. He's dressed all in tweeds. And he talks about how it was boring. He says, yep, the guy lost his head. He just kind of ran. I found him. And that was it. That was the end of the hunt. Yeah, he says, my old issue is coming back. Boredom. I'm getting bored. And
this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, so it's weird because now Rainsford doesn't know what his next move is. So he even says, like, I want to go home. Like, I demand that I leave right now. And the general says, okay, well, we can't do that.
Because you know my plans.
Yeah, exactly.
And where I live.
So the general like seems kind of insulted, and then he says, so does that mean you won't hunt? And he says, no, I'm a hunter, not a murderer. Like, I won't hunt.
Right.
And he says, okay, well, then the other option is I give you over to Ivan. And that's when Rainsford realizes he doesn't want Rainsford to hunt with him. When he says hunt, he means be the hunted. Because that's what he'll say to people. He'll say, let's go hunt. But what he means is I'm going to hunt you.
That's a bit of a... It's not a very good use of words there.
It's true. Well, I think that's part of it. He doesn't want to just openly be like, okay, you ready to get hunted?
Yeah.
You know, he wants it to...
I guess he gives him a hunting knife.
So they are hunting him.
It's still an opportunity to hunt back, but I have a feeling most people don't.
Most. Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rainsford says, he's like, you're kidding. And he says, what did I tell you? I never joke when it comes to hunting.
I only misuse terms.
Yeah, I only deliberately mislead people. Fucking asshole. So he says to him, okay, well, if you win, we'll place you on the mainland near a town, and the only deal is that you can't tell anybody what happened here. And Rainsford says, bullshit, that's not happening.
Why would he say that?
I know.
Why not just be like, okay?
Well, because at this point, Rainsford's basically decided either I'm going to kill them or they're going to kill me.
That's really strange.
Well, what other options do you have? Because do you really believe he's going to just drop you off on the mainland near some island?
No, probably not.
Exactly. So he goes, yeah, no, not happening. And the general says, okay, well, we can discuss that in 3 days. Unless...
He gives him 3 days?
Well, because that's the deal. So you have to survive 3 whole days. You have to survive until midnight on the 3rd day, and then you win the game.
Oh, so you don't have to kill him.
You don't have to kill him.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's a survival game for the quarry. It's a hunting game for him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that's actually kind of where that conversation ends because it's time. He says, okay, well, I'm going to go take a nap. I always take a siesta after lunch. Yeah.
This guy is
he's so funny.
I think he could probably be expertly played by Leonardo DiCaprio if he hadn't already done basically the role
in Django
of being this extravagant murderer who plays games and shit. But I think DiCaprio would be perfect.
I think so. This man's supposed to be a little older though. That's the thing. He's supposed to be this suave, slightly older gentleman. You know who I think could actually play him really well? The father from The Ranch. If you've seen that show at all.
Oh.
He would play the character well because he's a silver fox. That's what you need. Yeah, exactly. Or like a Liam Neeson type, maybe.
I've been looking for the most dangerous game.
Something like that.
He's in like every truck commercial, that guy.
It's true, actually. He has such a Chevy voice.
Yeah. It's rough and tough, like this game.
Hey, you gotta get paid where you get paid, man.
Yeah, man.
So the general goes for a nap, and that's Rainsford's time. But before he leaves, he says, "Don't go to the Death Swamp, because the Death Swamp, for obvious reasons."
Oh, really?
He says the quicksand in the Death Swamp claimed one of his best hounds, and also claimed the life of one of the huntees.
Right.
So he said, basically, just don't go there because it's not a good place to be. But
not really sure why I have
do whatever you want.
I've been trying to turn it to an oasis, but you know how things go.
I've been trying to pave it into a parking lot. And it's just, yeah. So he goes for a nap, and Rainsford is given a just small handful of things. He's given a hunting knife, hunting clothes, and then a little sack of food. Which is surprising. They never actually talk about him eating, which is kind of funny.
It's actually one of the biggest parts of survival.
Absolutely. And also, when you're running from somebody, you need that energy. And I wonder what kind of food they provided them with.
Probably high protein.
Bread and water, or like protein packs, or, it depends what era this is, I guess.
Like dried out meat.
So Rainsford, it's actually really interesting. It goes so quickly from scene to scene. So it'll be reading along, and Rainsford will just be there with them, and then all of a sudden, he's off in the middle of nowhere. So it says, he was clear-headed, and then all of a sudden he was confused as soon as the gate shut behind them.
Yeah.
Because it just all of a sudden sinks in that now this is happening. And then he's immediately in it. The next sentence, he's actually already running. Oh. And you're like, okay, well, I guess there's this isn't a story that chooses to go second by second. It's just important points. Oh. Everything else is kind of...
Yeah, I guess it's a short story. They probably wanted to get this.
Yeah, you gotta fit it in however you can. So he's given these things, he's on the run, and he starts to realize, I need to keep my nerve. That's the biggest thing. The last guy lost his head, and then lost his head.
Yeah.
So I gotta be careful, I gotta be on top of my game. So he starts running for a while, and then he realizes this is useless. And the really interesting metaphor they use is, he says, I am set in a picture which is framed by water, and everything that happens within this image must remain within the frame.
Okay. Which
is a weird metaphor, but what he's saying is that you have this really rigidly defined game area. It's not like there's fences. The fence is an open sea, which means there's no way you can get out or away.
Right.
So he says, okay, well, I'll give him a fucking trail to follow. So he starts looping and doing backflips and just trying to find some sort of a way that he can confuse the general.
Yeah.
And he finally comes to a massive tree, and he says, okay, this is a good place to stop. So he tries to climb the tree without making any marks or anything, and then just sits himself up in the crotch of the tree, in a Y.
Okay.
And sleeps. So this is the first time he gets sleep, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Because he doesn't even really sleep when he's there.
Yeah.
And then he's woken because a bird just kind of gets startled and goes flying off. You always see that in
that's actually
super cliche. Whenever you see a jungle movie,
and they suddenly wake up to a loud sound. I'm imagining this entire thing as a scrapplay.
It's pretty much what it
is. Needs to
is.
be a movie.
It's a very efficient screenplay. Every book that we've done should be a movie.
What have we done?
Frankenstein, Lord of the Flies, and this.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies needs an update.
A new movie.
Frankenstein
needs a good movie.
Yeah. Was it not very good, the one with Radcliffe?
Oh, that was a great movie. It had nothing to do with the book.
Oh, okay.
Great movie,
right.
Though.
Just we need
a book movie.
We need
an adaptation, a real adaptation.
Well, proper adaptation.
Hey, you're always talking about true sequels. We need a true first movie.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. A movie, the medium you're working in needs to be the priority. So. I think the reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe works so well is because they treat them like movies, and then they adapt superheroes into them instead of saying this is a superhero movie.
That's a good point.
It's a totally different thing.
They structure them differently.
Especially the last three, Winter Soldier, Civil War. Those are movies with characters that happen to be superheroes.
Super characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little cliche, that idea. Sleeping in a tree, and the fogginess of his dream is broken by a bird which startles him, and he sees ruffling in the bush.
Yeah.
But that's what he sees. So the general is plodding along through the same path that he took to get there. And this is in the morning, so the light has come up, but it's probably still very early morning. And the general walks right up to the tree he's in. and then just stops, pulls out a cigarette, and starts smoking it.
Oh, fuck.
And then slowly he starts looking up the tree, like inch by inch, and Rainsford's basically waiting to jump on him, because if he sees him, he knows he has no choice.
Yeah.
And he's just holding his breath, waiting to just jump down on top of the general. And then the general stops looking up right before he looks at the tree. And then he just turns around and leaves.
Oh, shit.
Just goes away. And Rainsford, relaxes, lets out his breath. And then he realizes a couple of really terrifying things. The first is the general can follow his trail at night, no matter how complicated it is. He knows the jungle so well. But also, the general knew he was there. It was pretty obvious because he wouldn't have just left like that.
Oh,
so he's saving him for another day because he didn't want to catch him on the first day. This is Sanger Rainsford from New York. He can't just, gun him down. He wants a test. He wants a trial.
Oh, he also wants to show him.
Yeah, what it's like.
You have to outsmart me. You're not going to lose the trail.
Yeah. Yeah, and he says that was when he learned like what true fear was. Yeah, so he knows he has to do something. So he sprints down this trail, and maybe like 150 feet later, he finds this big dead tree that's resting on like this sort of tiny little one. So he takes out his knife and he creates, it's called a Malay man catcher. It's the name of it. It's essentially just a small tree that's a hair trigger. So it's cut to the point where it's almost cut off. Oh. And as soon as you touch it, it's going to drop that huge tree.
Oh, so he sets a trap for him.
He sets a trap.
Oh, Man Trap Island.
A man trap.
There you go.
That's a good one, actually. Man Trap Island. We'll write to the writer of this if he's still alive. So, and then he doesn't even really clear the area. He only moves maybe 150 feet and then dives behind a log because he kind of wants to know if this kills the general or not. Right? He wants to know if his trap is effective.
Right.
So he's lying in wait and he hears the general coming along. So the general's coming and he's doing the same thing where he's looking down, trying to find like broken foliage. And he hits the bough that's the trigger and notices it and immediately jumps back to try not to get crushed by it.
Yeah.
And he would have otherwise. He would have just been crushed and killed. But instead it just strikes him in the shoulder and injures him. So he's like minorly injured. And he even stops and says, "I know you can hear me, Rainsford." And he says, "This has been a good show.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I was looking for.
He's happy about this shit.
I'm going to go and get my shoulder fixed up and come back and kill you." Something like that. So he just plods off, and Rainsford is now in a new world. He now knows he can attack the general back, but he also knows that the general is waiting for it.
And that everything he does encourages the
general more.
Which is why it's really fucked up. It's like this guy wants what he's going for.
He wants to be attacked. So Rainsford actually, at this point, runs for hours. That's how big this island is.
He decides like the endurance is what he's going to go for now?
Well, he realizes he needs to put a lot of distance between him and the general, and at this point he's kind of panicking because he's just blown like one of his best tricks.
Yeah.
Right? So he runs for hours before he reaches the death swamp. That's how huge this island is. It's not a little thing. It's not like 200 yards in one direction, a mile in the other direction. This is a massive place.
Yeah.
So he gets to the death swamp, and he actually starts to get his feet stuck in it. And he thinks, I have a clever fucking idea. So he backs up to the point where he's still in the sand, but it's not that mucky quicksand. Mm-hmm. And he digs with his hands a pit that's deep enough to be above his shoulders.
Oh, wow.
Because this is where he talks about the French War. So apparently in France, they had to dig themselves into trenches by hand.
Oh, boy.
So he digs this massive hole above his shoulders in sand with his bare hands, which is... Where did he put the soil? That's what I'm just thinking about now. Because that's a lot of soil, and it would be really obvious that there's a hole.
Yeah.
Funny, I never thought about that until this very moment. But I work for a company that drills holes in the ground.
Yeah.
You put a little tiny hole in the ground and you get a fuckload of soil out of it.
Yeah.
So you dig a shoulder deep pit, you're going to have a pile.
Maybe he filled it. Like maybe there was a pile, or maybe there's a hole next to it.
Well, there's also the quicksand, so he could have kind of piled it in that direction. So then he sharpens sticks and puts them at the bottom. Like, this is a really classic trap. Anyone's heard of this type of trap.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I think they call it a deadfall in most places. Or no, a deadfall is when you have the massive weight that comes down and hits the animal.
Oh.
They called it a Burmese tiger trap in this.
Fuck. Pitfall.
Pitfall, that's it. Thank you.
There's a game called Pitfall. It's the only reason I know that.
So he builds this pitfall, puts a mat of leaves and twigs over top of it just to cover it up. And then does the same thing. He hides maybe 100 feet away because he wants to know if the trap is effective.
Yeah.
And this is the point where it says Rainsford lived a year and a minute. So that's how tense it is for him because he's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He just can't wait for this to be over.
Exactly. So, like, every second takes so much longer than you would expect it to. And he actually even jumps out of his hiding space when he hears the sound, but then immediately jumps back into his hiding space because the general is still standing there, but his dog is down the hole.
Oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm. So the general again says, I know you're listening. I know you can hear me. So
I'm gonna get another dog.
Yeah, he basically said, let's see how you do against all of the dogs. And
Jesus.
then plods back along the trail, going to get more things.
Oh, this fucking guy.
I know. So Rainsford, I think, sleeps at this point because it's the middle of the night. The general's leaving, so it'll take him hours, presumably, to get back to his house. So Rainsford sleeps, and when he wakes, he's woken to the sound of hounds. Like, many hounds. Imagine the Cerberus from Hercules.
Yeah.
You know, it's just 3 dogs barking constantly. It's like one noise.
Oh.
That's what he hears. The baying of like 12 hounds all at once. It sounds like this one continuous bark.
Jeez.
And he can tell that they're coming. He can feel them getting closer and hear that the noise is getting louder. So he climbs a tree and he finds out that the general is coming, but Ivan is also coming with the dogs in leash. So they're waiting to get close to him so that they can then release the hounds and cut them off. You know, they don't want the hounds running everywhere. They've got them all in one spot.
Yeah.
So Rainsford sets one final trap. It's like his last trap he can do. So he bends back a little tiny sapling, and he ties it off with some, I don't know what kind of vine, I think a grapevine. Ties it off with a grapevine and attaches his knife to the end of it. So he's now giving up his hunting knife to set this trap. And then he just runs like hell. Because at this point, what else are you going to do? You've got dogs chasing you. They're going to find you. Up a tree, under a rock, in a bush, they're going to find you. So he's just running until he hears the hounds stop. And he climbs another tree to look back and see what happens because he's thinking, I might have taken the general down. He missed the general, but the knife took Ivan just totally out of the equation. So I guess one of the hounds...
I'd like to refuse the game now?
Oh, this has been fun.
Yeah.
So Ivan gets totally taken out by this springy knife. I guess one of the dogs must have tripped the wire and then just... That's it. This tree just comes flying back down the trail and buries... I mean, a hunting knife's got to be big. A hunting knife's got to be 6 to 8 inches long, right?
Oh, yeah.
So...
Oh, yeah. I was always imagining it was a little tiny one. Yeah, a hunting knife would be huge.
Exactly. So Ivan is just gone. Ivan is basically dead. So Rainsford now knows it's all on Chase. The dogs are just going to come after him now, right? Because he doesn't have a hunting knife. He doesn't have anything. He's got maybe some food. And the food is just going to help the dogs find him faster, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's bolting and he sees a blue gap between a couple of trees. And so he just goes for it. And he runs and sprints right through this gap in the trees and just off into the ocean. And just plummets down into the ocean.
Like off a cliff?
Off a cliff. Just runs and he doesn't care where he's going. He just knows he needs to get out of the forest.
Yeah.
And then the general comes up to the edge, looks out at it, stays there for minutes, just trying to see if Rainsford surfaces, try to see where he goes. Doesn't see anything, doesn't notice anything. So he just says, okay, I guess that's it. I'm going to go home. So the general goes home, makes himself dinner, has some wine, reads a book, reads Marcus Aurelius, which I thought was kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Aurelius.
Yeah,
like
so he's mildly annoyed, it says. 2 things were minor annoyances. The first was that Ivan was dead and he had to replace him. And the other was that his quarry got away.
Yeah.
But he says the American didn't play the game. Because I guess in his mind, the game is stay in the jungle.
He's out of bounds.
Yeah, I guess. So he's thinking, you know what? Yeah, he lost the game because he didn't want to play by the rules of the game. And the general then he's not doing anything else. So he goes to bed and he walks into his room and he locks the door. And then he walks over to the window and he looks out and he says to the hounds, better no luck next time, guys. because the hounds obviously like want to hunt too. What else are they doing on this tropical desert island? There's nothing for them to like hunt down for themselves.
Yeah.
And then he turns around.
Read me an excerpt?
I am. Turns around and he turns the light on, and Rainsford is there, hiding behind a curtain. And which I think is funny because he locked himself in before that. So he's now done the exact same thing he did to Rainsford. He's locked them into a cage. And he said, "All right, good job, Rainsford. You won the game." And Rainsford says, "Yeah, but I'm still a beast at bay." Because he's basically saying, this game's not over.
Yeah.
The game ends when one of us dies.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Get ready, General." So yeah, this is the excerpt I'm going to read. So the General says, "One of us will become dinner for the hounds, and the other will sleep in this very excellent bed. On guard, Rainsford." And then the last line in the whole story. He had never slept in a better bed, Rainsford decided.
So is that intentionally ambiguous?
I think so.
Because Rainsford just like it that could be saying that that's a thought of Rainsford that could be before or after he wins. That could be either.
Yeah.
So it's intentionally vague.
Exactly.
It's basically an Inception die.
It's a cutting short.
What's it called? Yeah, it's essentially it's a short story that cut short.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
And it lets you, it's pretty obvious what happened, but it lets you decide how you think it happened.
I wouldn't say it's obvious, actually. I think that's intentionally vague, because it was like they didn't say, and then
Rainsford killed him and slept in his bed.
No, like they did. Like he could have wrote, and then Rainsford had the best sleep he's ever had the best bed, because that would imply he in fact did, but that would be the best bed Rainsford thought
to sleep in. Yeah,
to sleep in. It's like it could be either like I want to do this or I did this. It could be both.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I
love that. Actually.
That's a great way to end it.
Because I was thinking, I had a feeling this was going to end like that, where Rainsford shows up and he's like, "All right, well, time to play my game."
Yeah,
the same way that you didn't give me a choice. I mean, you gave me a choice, but yeah. Now it's
no choice at all.
Now it's your turn, but. Cutting short on the story in that way, it's almost like the way that the second Sherlock Holmes movie ends, where the two of them decide that they're no longer going to be a crime-fighting duo, and Watson is writing his memoirs, and he writes "The End." And Sherlock comes out of nowhere and puts a question mark at the end of it.
I love
that. And the movie just ends on that moment.
The symbolism is so simple.
It is.
It's so perfect.
And like that moment, like that's what it feels like. It feels like that if you made a movie about this, that the general, or let's say the general had like two swords in the wall, like they always do, and Rainsford's standing there with two swords with an opportunity to kill him. And he
gives him the other
throws
sword.
the sword to him because Rainsford's now in a 3-day mindset of I need to survive or kill this man. So he's decided, I can't just let this guy continue to do this to people until he dies inevitably. I have to end this here. Imagine if the movie ends with "on guard" and then boom, like it ends with just like ambiguous, like the two of them have now decided that both of them want this fight to happen, or rather that now Rainsford has decided that this is his dangerous game.
Yeah Rainsford, well, like he said, he's become a beast. He's been turned into an animal by what the general had done, and now he's going to act like an animal. And I think it would be hard to actually end a movie, because in the story it's really easy. The general says "on guard," they're gonna fight, and then it just says he never slept in a better bed. But in a movie, how would you portray that without displaying anything that would throw off that ending?
You'd probably have to end it with throwing him the sword. The two of them have sort of the general has sort of a smirk on his face, because this is the first time anyone has ever put it back on him like this. Ever.
Yeah, well, the general is probably in some ways happy. And it even says, before, when Rainsford says "get ready," the general bows to him. So the general knows this is it. This is the most dangerous game. I found it. I found him the most dangerous game.
I like this.
Yeah.
That whole story is cool. And the whole thing jammed into 15 pages. Is that front and back?
Yeah. No, it's one single-sided. It would be just 15 pages if you choose to if you choose to put it in a Word document, 15 pages.
Well, I apologize for the bandsaw in the background.
Someone's running a Dremel upstairs.
And I'm worried about hammering nails into the wall.
It's funny because you wonder, like, is that just some sort of new age vacuum I'm not aware of?
No, because the last time that happened, they were actually doing work on the store below us. And that's just like the vibration going up the girders.
Weird.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's upstairs. Although it sounded like it was upstairs last time.
Yeah.
But a good opportunity to end the episode, unless you have more episode. It's not an episode. The discussions.
I think everyone should read The Most Dangerous Game because it's so short. Every time you read it, or every time I read it, because I read it 4 times, and it feels like it's going to be sluggish, especially in the middle when the general takes 2 pages to tell him that he's hunting people. But it's like I said, there's no filler. It doesn't bother with saying, and then he did this, and then he did that, and then he did this. It just says what happens, the important parts of what happens. So you go so quickly from Rainsford falling off a boat to Rainsford eating dinner with the general to Rainsford being hunted and taking on the general's dogs and Ivan and all that.
That's cool.
It's quick, but the perfect length. It's long enough that you can really get into it, but short enough that it's not this huge endeavor to read. Wow. I think it's worth it.
It's probably the best chance I'll ever have at reading something because I don't read. So 15 pages, like that's not that much.
Hasn't been decided what the next one will be, but it might be a short story as well.
Okay.
We will see.
That's exciting.
Thank you for joining us. This has been The Most Dangerous Game. Ooh. Well, this wasn't, but we were.
No. Sure?
Yes.